All right, so we should be live now. Awesome. So I took a couple of notes just to get us some subjects for the day, but
cool.
Shouldn't be too hard to find things to talk about.
I've got my phone here so I can look at all the stuff I played this week.
I suppose I should pull up that page too. I didn't play much this week. I played more last week, but I'm surprised you can play anything in between moving stuff.
Oh my goodness, it's so funny. My gaming group, I'm so sad to be leaving them. So it's like, even though I'm like 100% hardcore, like we got a pack, it's also like every day I must play to like
That's
get as
so
much
cute.
game before we leave.
Oh man. And it's so awful when that happens. I've gone through like 2 cycles of gaming groups here in Seattle, and every time we like separate ways for like kids or something, it's always so sad.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna do a quick intro and then we'll get to chatting.
Sounds good.
Cool. Good morning, everybody. I am Maggibot, and we are doing a Sunday morning hangout. Today I have with me Megan, who is guest starring. I'm really glad to have her here. Our plan is to talk about some highlights I've been jotting down, surprises and stuff from Origins that I didn't really have on my radar, and then probably some music and gaming, because I know that's something Megan likes to talk about. Megan, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I got home pretty late from a party last night, but we had 2 birthdays back to back, so I'm doing okay though.
Let's see, what was I doing? I was watching Harry Potter last night.
Which one?
The 3rd movie, Prisoner of Azkaban.
Okay. I'm a rewatcher. I like to rewatch everything, and for Harry Potter, for some reason, I can't really rewatch number 2 and number 3. I only rewatch every other time I watch the movies.
Yeah, I'm almost to, I want to say once a year, I reread all the books, and I feel like I'm just about to that point, but I just started reading all the new canon Star Wars novels.
Oh, wow.
So I've just started the 2nd one, and so now I'm like, oh, when am I going to get to Harry Potter?
I don't reread the books, but I re-listen to the audiobooks at least once a year.
Nice.
Stephen Fry does the voice narration, and he's so good. It's an amazing way to experience Harry Potter.
Awesome.
So Megan, tell us a little bit about yourself, because I don't know if everyone follows you on Twitter. It's mnaxer, MNAXER, yeah?
Yep, that's it.
And she's lovely, and she's moving away from her regular game group right now, which is so sad.
I am. The pile of boxes next to me is so scary, and probably even scarier because they're all empty at this point.
Oh, no.
So far, we have 5 boxes packed, and we're in our T-minus less than a month countdown. So it is, oh man, it is getting rough. So yeah, basically, I just got back into gaming maybe about 3 or 4 years ago. But I really grew up gaming a ton. I was really lucky that my dad really liked playing board games, so we played a lot. We played a lot of kind of old classics, but my parents had a lot of friends in Germany, so I would get a lot of like the kids' Ravensburger games too, which was really cool. So I grew up playing stuff like Ghost Party, which I think is also referred to like Midnight Party, maybe. It's like little ghosts comes around, like eats people, and you're trying to get into rooms and like lock yourself in a room to get away from the ghost. And
what was that called? Ghost Party?
Yeah, I think it's either Ghost Party or Midnight Party. It's a really fun kids game. I mean, it's basically roll and move, but every once in a while there's a ghost that moves along the board, and the ghost is the little plastic piece is hollow, and the little people plastic pieces fit inside the ghost.
No.
So yeah.
Like Goblet, like.
Yeah, so when he moves onto a tile that has people on it, you can put him like directly like eating the people. So it's roll and move, but a little bit of push your luck. You're trying to get into different rooms, but say if you lock yourself in the bathroom, you get negative points because you don't want to be stuck in the bathroom. But if you lock yourself in like the really cool trophy room, you get bonus points. So you're trying to escape the ghost, but also get the premium rooms. So it's really silly. But it was fun growing up with all these games and kind of continuing just a couple games through for a long time through college and whatnot. And then once I started the PhD here at the University of Oregon, I really got back into gaming. It was kind of my escape from academia. It was so good to have this community and this group of friends outside of the university and outside of my department. I mean, I love my department. I love my friends from the university here. But when you're working every day, all day on a huge project like a dissertation, it's really nice to have somebody that just isn't part of that you can go hang out with and just feel like a normal human being. So that's really what got me back into gaming. So I'm primarily, I'd probably call myself primarily a Euro gamer, but I also play my fair share of Ameritrash-ish games, I guess, and play a lot of abstract games. And I'm very lucky to have a really awesome gamer spouse. So my husband plays games with me. So that's kind of what we do instead of watching television after dinner. So I'm really lucky that I get to play a lot of games.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in their primary relationship, if that can be someone that they can game with, it is so much nicer. And you meet so many people that are like, I haven't played a game in 3 weeks. And you're like, I live with someone who will play a game with me if I get to that point. So like you feel like that for me is actually kind of a requirement, like a prerequisite.
Yeah. And what's kind of nice about how Paul and I got into gaming is that he also grew up with a lot of gaming, and we both kind of, as we grew up, we played less and less. And then after we moved here, we both kind of rediscovered the hobby together, which was really great. So, and then it started becoming, he would pick out a game to bring home that he thought I would like, and I'd pick out a game that I thought he would like, and now he plays Star Wars Armada. So that's kind of all I have to worry about. What should I get Paul for our anniversary? I think I'll get him an Armada playmat. Yeah, that's it. So
to be fair, Armada has so much stuff. You could probably give him something like every month and you never run out.
Oh yeah, but it's at least it has less stuff than X-Wing. And it has a much deeper strategy. I mean, even though I am primarily that Euro player, Armada has, I mean, it has a lot of tactics, but for the big capital ships, and especially the larger they are, the more turns in advance you have to plan their actions. So you have to be really careful of, okay, I have this big Star Destroyer, but I need to know what to do with it 3 turns from now. And being able to kind of predict what the other player will do and how you're going to maneuver, it's really fun.
Well, and as someone who most of the time plays Eurogames or talks about Eurogames, it's kind of nice to have someone close to you that really wants to play like something like Armada, because you might not have picked that up on your own. That might not have been the game that you went for.
Yeah, I think that's Paul's primary goal in our kind of gaming relationship is to make sure that I get to see things besides the Euro games. Because if I had my way, I'd probably just go in the Euro corner and never leave.
Well, so that's the thing about my job, that it kind of keeps me knowing about all of the things, like the games I would never ever touch. And every once in a while, that means that I get to find something outside my normal wheelhouse that I like Werfel Bonanza I've been playing all week with people because it's just a goofy little dice game, but it's pretty fun. It's got some interesting bits to it. I mean, it's a simple filler, but it was something I never would have played if I didn't have to kind of pay attention to the whole spectrum.
Yeah, definitely. We've definitely tried to, as we build our collection slowly but surely, try to make sure that we have a nice range of things, not only in kind of game weight to make sure that we have kind of equal or at least a nice smattering of gateway games all the way up to like super heavy Euros, but that we also have a nice variety of styles, that we have fillers at all. Like, and for a long time, it was like we just didn't have any fillers. For a long time, the only game we had that used dice was Shadows over Camelot. So, and it has one D8, and that's it. And for a long time, that was the only die on our shelf. And then slowly but surely, it was like, you know what? Maybe we should try more games that use dice. Maybe we would like them. And then we found a couple that we really liked, and it kind of opened the floodgates.
Yeah, but does like Bora Bora count as like having a dice mechanic or something? Like some of those games, they have dice technically, but they're not dice. I don't know. There's so few games where I roll a die and have to do a thing because of it. That's like very rare in my collection.
Yeah, that's what we started finding, that as we added games that had dice, it was stuff like Le Grand Ha. That's, well, okay, yeah, you roll them, but there's that's not the only thing. And for us, as far as dice go, it's just, there's got to be some mechanic and some way to mitigate them. And if there isn't, it's like the biggest turnoff in a game for us, if there's no mitigation of the luck factor.
Well, but I think you hit on it. Someone in the chat, Eric, was saying that he owns more gateway light games and less heavy games because he teaches so much. And yeah. I think, I mean, I personally, if you came to my house and you had never played a game before, I probably could still help you, but I don't keep a lot of gateways around. I don't come across new players that often. At this point, I'm mostly teaching and interacting with people who've been gaming for a while. So
yeah,
by gateways.
We started thinking a lot more about gateway games now that we're a month away from moving, and thinking, oh gosh, like what happens if we move and then, you know, we're going to make all these new friends, and when they come over, are we going to have stuff for them to play? And we started looking at the shelf and we thought, okay, well, we have Carcassonne still. We love Carcassonne. And we have Ticket to Ride still with a bunch of maps. It's like, okay, well, maybe we'll just start with USA map. And I recently just picked up, or at least put in the cart, and we'll ship it after we finish moving. Just picked up Takenoko. I fell in love with this game.
Really?
Yeah, it's colorful and fun, and even with I ended up playing it with a bunch of gamers at a game night maybe about a month ago, and it was just something that was light and refreshing, and I think we just needed something that was light and fun, that we could sit and laugh and kind of have a conversation and still get to play something that had some strategy to it. It was just really hit the spot.
It is one of the more beautiful games with those beautiful bamboo pieces that stack into each other. I always think one thing I love about gaming that you don't see in heavy Euros, so I look for in gateway games, are those like really unique pieces that kind of give you a tactile experience. Takenoko, it felt like one of the objective stacks was like completely worse than the other two, so I got a little frustrated with the base game, but I think that's just me being nitpicky. It's otherwise just a really wonderful game.
Yeah, I was really happy to finally get to try it. It was one of those games that I never got to play. And finally, when we all just kind of wanted a breather game night, it was like, you know what, let's pull out Takenoko. I was like, yes, I get to try it. It was great.
Sorry, I'm trying to get someone out of the chat. There we go. Sorry, they're getting a little weird. And so, goodbye, weirdo. So this week, a lot of our friends, I'm assuming yours as well as mine, are over at Origins, kind of conning it up over there. I was watching the stream for the first 3 days they were doing it because I was at work. I planned on maybe tuning in this weekend, but I didn't get around to it. Just too much was going on. But as I was watching, I was actually surprised by the number of games that weren't on my radar that I had to jot down to check out at Gen Con or something. Have you been watching this stream at all?
Yeah, I've been watching. It's really nice. to just put the YouTube app up on the TV, and when you're sorting through stuff and packing boxes, even though I only did 5, it's really nice just to have something kind of on in the background that you can listen to, and then when something comes on that piques your interest, you can be like, oh, that looks cool. So it's, yeah, I've been watching it the last couple days off and on.
Well, and one thing I haven't written to Board Game Geek about yet, but what I liked, this is Board Game Geek does a live stream every time there's a con, and this is the first time they did it at Origins. And the difference between this stream and other streams is that they were allowing people that didn't have published for sale copies to come on and do some like prototypes of upcoming games. Because Origins had so few people that needed to come on, they were trying to fill out their schedule, so they kind of loosened that a little bit. And I like that this stream will be different than the Gen Con stream, is my hope. Because you don't want something so close together with identical material. And they go from Origins to BGG, or not to BGG, to Gen Con to Essen. And usually the Gen Con and Essen streams are super different and fun and interesting. So I really loved that, like, Origins was more chill, I guess, like, about what would be allowed on.
Yeah, I also was kind of watching with keeping in mind that Origins is going to be 2 hours away from me next year. So it's going to be kind of probably my first big national con that I'm going to get to go to. So I was also kind of watching just to get like a feel for it and get an idea of what kind of stuff is there and the kind of environment for it. So I was super excited to keep my eye on that stream.
That's interesting. Yeah, you'll be much closer to a lot of like regional cons, or at least easier to get them, because getting from the West Coast to anywhere is expensive and difficult. I didn't realize that until I was in Seattle and I was looking at flights to anywhere, and it's at least, the amount that 2 tickets would have cost me from anywhere else.
Oh yeah, it was crazy. I didn't really think about that either when we moved out to the West Coast, and it wasn't until I started going out and going to academic conferences and then not getting a ton of money in reimbursements from the department that was like, ooh, this is rough.
Yeah, I know that feel. Like, cons come out of pocket, and every time I'm like, okay, if you can just, because one nice thing is the badge goes on sale 1 month, and then months later you have to buy your tickets and then your hotel, and kind of spaces it out for you. But I've definitely wanted to go to more cons than I've been able to.
Yeah, same here. So I'm kind of gearing up. I'm already planning Origins 2017. Come and say hi to me.
That would be so cool. From what I've heard, Origins is like Dice Tower Con, or a very, very small BGG con, that it's very game oriented. There's lots of just people chilling and playing games the whole time, and not a huge craziness around the expo hall like Gen Con. So it sounds like a good time.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely the type of con that I would gravitate towards. We have a local con here just for people in town and in the couple surrounding towns. And it's just all about getting together and playing.
Yeah,
and it's nice, and it's like, if I could have that like just huge, that would be amazing.
Yeah, from my experience, especially for local cons, we'll just end up my regular 4 people that I play games with gaming together at this thing that we paid for a badge for. But what it does provide is that you take the time and you just spend a few days gaming with your good friends, and it's usually way worth the price of the ticket or whatever it is.
So what piqued your interest in
this? So the first one I saw, and I think this is going to be, I don't know that it'll be super balanced or anything because they look pretty new, but there's a game from Sherwood Games called Robots Battle for the Coal Heart. Did you see that stream?
I didn't.
So this poor guy came on. So Sherwood Games came on stream, and they had a prototype which was almost as big as a coffin box, like this giant, giant board, giant pieces. Halfway through their explanation, they explained that they just let the prototype be huge, and that the real game isn't going to be like that.
Oh, weird.
But it was a mix of Race for the Galaxy and like Suburbia. So you have a robot in front of you that has different parts you can build up onto it. And each of those parts is going to lend you a new ability or cause effects to happen based on what other people are doing. Like every time they add a robot part, they have to do something else. So kind of like Suburbia, where you have to watch out for like the different tiles that go off. But the actual play is Race for the Galaxy role selection, where everyone is going to choose a phase and you get a benefit if you chose the phase that you're in, but everyone's going to take the action. It seemed like a really good mix.
Cool. Well, I love both Race for the Galaxy and Suburbia. Suburbia is my #1 game of all time ever. So now you have my interest peaked.
So what do you like about Suburbia? Because I just had like 1 or 2 issues with it, but I enjoyed it, but it just seemed a little bit hard to track everything. Does that get better as you play it more often?
Oh yeah, definitely. Now, as a kid, both me and my husband grew up as the biggest SimCity nerds of all time. I mean, it was craziness. Like when we started dating, we would like hang out and play SimCity. Like that's the level of nerd we're talking here. So as soon as I found out that Suburbia was a game that existed, it was like, okay, I have to get this. I have to play it. And especially 2-player, when you can kind of sit side by side and see everything really easily, it's really easy to track, especially even though it's not a deck building game or a card game. I feel like it lends itself to the same kind of feeling as like learning all the cards in something like Ascension or Dominion. Like once you know what all the tiles are and you've played it enough to just be like, oh, right, fast food. Like then you just know what the fast food chain does and you don't have to like sit and read every tile. And it's a lot easier when someone across the table says, hey, you know, I'm picking up, I'm picking up the homeowners association. It's like, ooh, I've got to be careful about my residential. Like it just automatically kind of triggers that, oh, here's that little reminder. I remember how cool that is to have that tile, and now they have that tile, so I have to watch out. So
that makes a lot of sense. So I played Suburbia like twice maybe, and I think it is more of a 2-player game, and that's maybe why it didn't latch on for me, because I think I played it 4 and 3 players. But then I played Ludwig, which was like that plus a bidding mechanic, and I really, really liked that version. So maybe there's just one for depending on your player count.
Yeah, definitely. It's really weird. I played Castles and I was really disappointed with it. And then the next time I played it, I really disliked it. And I think part of it was just the downtime with the bidding and the master builder mechanic. That sometimes that could get a little bit of AP. But the thing I really disliked about it was how many goal cards you could get. And at that point, it's like, oh, you could have anything. I felt like it wasn't as strategic as Suburbia, where you have one hidden goal, and based on how you play, I might be able to guess that hidden goal and make sure you don't score it. Whereas in Castles, it's like, oh, you have 6 cards over there. You could have anything, and you could be doing anything over there. I have no way to know.
I hadn't actually considered that before, but I think the reason I didn't really notice that, if you play Suburbia 6 times or whatever, and you guys have this other meta where you can tell what goal card someone might have, and you're also able to interfere with that. Whereas I probably played Ludwig 3 times over the course of 2 months, and I wasn't trying to specialize. I guess it wasn't one I dug into. So that particular criticism makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, for me, Isle of Skye has 100% completely killed Castles for me. I love that everyone gets to bid at the same time, that there's less information to parse when you're trying to figure out how much money do I want to put for each tile. There's just a little bit more interaction. I really, really like it.
I think Isle of Skye for me, I played it once and I was like, oh, okay, this is all right. And then I taught it, and teaching that game to new players is a pleasure. I am a man who had never played anything beyond Parker Brothers yet, and the same night we played like Codenames and some other lighter stuff, but we played Isle of Skye with him, and he got all of the rules. He understood it perfectly. It just makes a lot of sense, even if you don't know anything about gaming.
And tile laying is so satisfying. I mean, if you're noticing a trend here, Suburbia, Isle of Skye, like I love tile laying. Just Give me a tile, let me put it down on the table, and I'll be a happy camper.
Whereas I don't think I have any tile layers that I particularly love. I think I have struggled with tile draw mechanics, especially the two that really stood out to me for being really punishing were Eclipse and Archipelago. I don't know if you ever played Archipelago, but it has double-sided tiles, and when you want to build out, you kind of point at a spot, you draw a tile, and then you can reject that one and automatically take the next one. But a lot of the time you can blank out and not get the right terrains to line up for you. And Eclipse was the same, where every time I drew a tile, the potential for points was so varied, given any given tile could be worth a lot of points and have ancients, or it could be worth almost nothing. And that was really frustrating for me.
Yeah, I've never been a huge fan of Eclipse. I've tried it a couple times, and it had a little bit too much randomness, especially with that kind of victory point generation. And the drawing victory points out of the bag is just, oh, I hate it so much. But I am a huge fan of Archipelago. I'm one of those like weird people that love it, and I've found now that we own it and love it so much that it's so hard to find people that want to play it. It feel like it falls into that really weird crack of you've got to like both, like kind of that heavier economic Euro, but you also have to like negotiation. And there's not a lot of people, at least not in our gaming groups around here, that kind of fall into both camps and that like both. There are people that are like, oh, a negotiation game? It's like, yeah, but it's also kind of a heavy Euro. And then you have the heavy Euro people who are like, oh, a heavy Euro. I'm like, yeah, but there's a lot of negotiation. And one of those two things usually turns off most people.
Archipelago, honestly, and this is one of the few games I will say this about, the theme was too much for me. It was too much colonialism. It was too, because literally in Archipelago, you have workers out on the board, and one thing that you're tracking are the people that were living there before you got there and kind of where you are. And if they revolt and they take over their island home and you die, like everybody loses. And the way to prevent a lot of that is to build churches, because they won't revolt when they have your religion. It's really frustrating to me that game's theme of most themes, like I know there's colonialism in a lot of board games, but that one was just super, super, super heavy on it.
Yeah, it is. It's a heavy game, and I think that's one of the other things that makes it difficult to find people to play it with, is to find people who maybe not just take the theme seriously, but kind of understand the theme and don't poo-poo it, but kind of, really understand the kind of simulation that it is, and kind of understand there's a really great blurb in the rule book about the historical inspirations for it and kind of the understanding the larger picture.
I agree with that, but it was also designed by a Frenchman who has kind of gone on the record by saying, just, we got to make whatever themes we want and we'll just do this and don't worry about that. And I got kind of frustrated with this kind of brush off of the criticisms of that theme.
Oh, sure. And Archipelago is not for everyone, that for sure. And that's part of the reason why I'm really glad that it at least plays really well with two. So whenever we want a big Archipelago night, we can sit and play Archipelago and not worry about it too much. But
I did love, so Archipelago, for anyone that hasn't played it, is a worker placement game, sorta, a tile laying game, sorta, a resource management game, sorta. It just has a lot of different bits. But one of the main bits is sort of this don't sink the island kind of mechanic, where every round you need different resources and everyone has to kind of pay into the pot. The only way I'll play that game, though, there was a green card that gave you points every time you kind of helped out the island. And without that mechanic, I really felt that there wasn't enough incentive for everyone to pitch in. You just have to like sucker that one nice person into pitching in every round and you'd be just fine. And so I really loved like an incentive mechanic to help the group, even though it's a competitive game.
Yeah, that's, I think, one of the reasons why I like the 2 player so much is that the very much recommended variant in the rulebook is to play with that card and an additional public goal.
Yeah.
So you always have that kind of benefactor. You are getting points by contributing. And in the 2 player game, because there aren't a lot of other people, you both have to cooperate so much more, or that island's gonna sink in like 2 turns.
Oh yeah, no, it's always on the edge of sinking. You never are safe, but there's usually 1 to 2 people in a 4-player game who are willing to pay in, and then the other 2 people kind of run away with the game because it's a lot of resources.
Yeah.
I will say in the chat they mentioned we were talking about tiling games, and Netters actually mentioned one of my absolute favorite games, and I didn't kind of put it into tiling in my brain. Have you played Ginkopolis?
I have. I adore that game.
The game is so fun. It's like this card drafting building game, and most of the points are at the very, very end of the game, and like the last round of Ginkopolis is one of the most fun parts of any game I can think of, because everything you're doing is trying to like cut stuff in half or take over these big chunks, giant chunks of points. There's so many cool points or mechanics going on in that one game.
Yeah, somebody please reprint this game.
Oh gosh.
Please.
I honestly, like, from my store, I would have expected that one to be a reprinted game. It sold really consistently, even though the theme is really funky. It's like a futuristic land where you're building ginkgo biloba trees to, like, because the environment, blah, 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 science. Like, it makes 0 sense.
But
And
it is beautiful.
yeah, it is really beautiful. And it's Xavier George, if I'm pronouncing his name right, who knows. And the design is just super solid, and it was Z-Man, and the components were actually really beautiful, and the color scheme was really neat. Everything about it was just super different, which I love.
There's one guy in our local game group that owns a copy, and he has to be really careful about when he brings it, because if it's on the table, it gets played. Which means that if he brings it every week, we'll just end up playing Gigopolis every week. So he's always like really careful of, okay, well, we just played this last week. I'm gonna let it sit for a little bit before bringing it back.
And it's not as strategic, but it works really well at the high player counts.
Yeah.
So it came out a lot when we had like too many people at the table.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things that I love about it and a lot of the kind of heavier games, the first time I played it, I was just like, I have no idea what's going on. Oh my goodness, what is this? Second time I played it, I was like, okay, I have a goal. I've learned from that first game. I'm gonna try to play better. And then I still got totally swamped because I realized, oh, I got the tiling part. I got that better, and I got my strategy better. But I passed too many good things to the next person, and I really didn't pay enough attention during the drafting. So then the third time I played it, it was like, okay, drafting is the priority. Let's get this strategy right. And I did much better. So it's like I feel like I'm improving and learning with each play, and that's something I really value in a good game.
And in our meta, one person, maybe the third or fourth time we had played it, came up with a strategy that kind of knocked us on our butts. He did this thing. I'm not going to say it on the air because I don't want to spoil it for people, but he did this thing, and no one playing could combat him at all. Like, we didn't see it coming. It came out of nowhere. He crushed us, and the game was over in like 3 seconds. So it took us like 4 more games to finally figure out how to compete with that strategy. And unfortunately, the way to do it is to kind of one person goes for it as well, and the other 2 people maybe work on something else. And that's really the only way. With the expansion, which is a modular expansion, we liked 2 of them. I think it was the gardens, whatever the high number cards were, and I think the garden mechanic. We hated the experts, though. Did you ever play with those?
I haven't played it with the expansion, or at least not to my knowledge. I don't think he has the expansion, so I think I've only ever played the base game.
And the base game holds up just fine. You could play that forever. It was just one of those, very few games where I was kind of interested in what the expansion might add. And you can pick and choose a few different things and you can add in whatever you like. I will let people know that the experts in the experts expansion are, they add a lot of like swingy crazy stuff to the game that it just didn't need. It's got enough going on.
Yeah, definitely.
And so back to Origins picks, of course. So in the chat, I did link to that robots game because I thought it was really cool and I'd love to hear what other people think. Because the guy was like, they had this rep on for Sherwood Games and he was just so excited. He was super excited to be talking about his game and showing it off, and it was really fun to see.
Cool.
The other one, so a lot of this stuff I'm looking forward to, like those are all known, Beyond Baker Street and Imhotep and Costa Rica and a couple others. Another one that was on the sillier side that I hadn't heard of before was Walk on Fire, which is going to be a green couch game.
Okay.
So this is like goofy convention game. I want to play it like at Gen Con with friends. It's you put out like the cards into a walk. It's like a circle, and you flip over a few, and then you're going to do some set collection by picking out vegetables that are flipped over. And then there's like this weird chop mechanic of how you get the cards back onto the pile. And it just looked like a really fun, silly time, and I hadn't heard of it before.
Cool.
And the kind of cool story from the stream on that one was that, so Eric Martin from Board Game Geek had just run into, I think it was Jason Kotarski at, I think last year's Origins. And he's like, hey, you want to play this goofy game I got from the Games Market out in Japan? And they played it, and it ended up where Jason then tracked down this designer, I think it's Pokey Chen, and got the game signed, and now 1 year later, he like actually has the prototype. It was kind of cool.
Oh, awesome. Speaking of games from Japan, I have been obsessed with this game from Japan that someone from our game group brought, and we ended up playing. What did we play? We played the new Matthias Kramer game.
Or
the Dynasty.
Flamen?
Is that What's it? That? Dynasties? Is that the name of it?
I don't think I've played that yet.
Okay, she had an import copy, and we tried it, and it was great. It was really fun. I mean, I've still only played it the once, and I think I'd really like to try it again. But it has a really fun I split, you choose mechanic, and kind of it's all about marriage. And so you're in like England and France and Germany, and you're trying to get all your family married off, and you're trying to make like good matches, and dowries are like what gets split, and it's really interesting. There's kind of a resource management thing, and because some multi-use card stuff. It's a fun game. It's a lot lighter than I thought it would be, but it's super fun. I definitely played it.
Crushed my dreams when you said that sentence. Because so all of these married off games, like there's Legacy and Among Nobles, and there was one other one. It was like a really heavy, crazy thing. I can't remember what that one was, but all of them for me, like I like Legacy, the one from Portal, okay, but most of them are kind of close but no cigar. Among Nobles, we had huge problems with. I just want one of these like marry off my daughter's games to be fun.
Yeah, this one, it's light and fun, and everybody at the table had a good time. So I would say give it a try.
Oh, obviously. I mean, yeah. With that kind of designer, you just kind of pick everything up.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But the real gem was the game she brought out after, which I actually pulled because I'm determined this has got to get more love. So she pulls out this box, and it looks so intriguing, just this really simple little black box. And I'm looking at it, and of course my understanding of Japanese is very slim. So it's like I can sort of read all the kana, but I only know a few of the kanji. And like, okay, so what is this game? And she's like, okay, it's called Everyone Does Not Come Out. I'm like, okay, what is this? So it's a push your luck deck building game with a very significant twist. So the theme is that you're in these ancient ruins and you're trying to get out, and there's a golem guarding all the treasure. So there's a kind of, let's see, there's a little map that shows all the treasure, and there's going to be a card next to each of these slots of a different type of treasure. So you might get something like a chalice or an ancient book or a gold dagger, like all this like really cool stuff. But in order to pick up treasure, you have to move backwards, and there are these little cards that have little spaces on them, and you kind of make like a little map out of cards. So in order to pick up a treasure, you have to move backwards towards the golem. And as you're moving, and so you're trying to move, and every time you pick up a treasure, it gets added to your deck. When you draw a card from your deck, it has a big number, and that's how many spaces you can move. So you're trying to build your deck so that you can move quickly. But the catch is that some of the cards will move the golem. Like the shield will move the golem because it's big and heavy and metal and it makes a lot of noise. So the golem's going to move forward one. And there's spaces, as you build the map, they're all face down. So when you hit a new card that no one's been on, you flip over the card and oh no, the golem's moving. And the golem moves so fast, like he will get you. The first maybe 3 or 4 games of this I played, no one got out. Like we all just died. It's a riot, it's silly. And the big twist with the deck building is that you don't hold your cards. So your deck is held by the next person. So all your decks rotate around the table by one person. And they hold your cards for you so that they have a hand of however many based on number of players. And you pull blind from your hand. When they draw a card to replenish your hand, they can move back one in order to deny you cards on your next turn. So it's this kind of push your luck, like try to screw over everybody, but if you screw over everybody too much, you're gonna die really fast.
Wow, this is great. How many players does it go up to?
It's 2 to 6, and I've played it, I don't know if I've played it with all 6. I've played it with 2, 4, and 5, and it plays really well at all the player counts. It especially even with 2, just because you're holding each other's decks, it's almost meaner. And at first, as I kind of fell in love with this game, it was like just this fun little filler. It takes like half an hour. It's just silly and fun. And then the more I started playing it, especially this week, I started noticing that whenever there were a lot of new players playing it, kind of everybody would die really quickly. And whenever we were playing it with people who had played it before, you'd get further and further. So there is a strategy there of how much do you push your luck? How do you push your luck? How do you know when to stop and take treasure and move back? And when do you just need to run? So it's
a really weird mix of things, though.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's this itty bitty little package. I mean, this box is itty bitty, so tiny, like all Japanese games are. And BGG store, please pick this one up. It's amazing. It's been a huge hit every time I bring it out. And I'm so obsessed with it. It just goes in the game bag every time.
I'm definitely, once we're done here, I'll start tweeting at Board Game Geek to see if they've considered picking it out, because it's always a coordination between the, publisher out in Japan and trying to get it into the store and stuff like that. But it does sound kind of right up their alley, too. I don't know who the publisher is yet, but I'll be looking it up a little later.
Yeah, it's good. There's a little bit of Japanese text on the cards, but there are English rules on BGG. Somebody translated them. And it's the sort of thing of once you kind of know what the cards do, you don't really need the text anymore. It's like, oh yeah, that thing that makes everyone move back one. I hate that thing.
You're like, no, I know exactly what that card does.
Exactly. It's just, it's silly, and everyone's always laughing. And once you start getting close to the end, it's so heart pounding whether or not you're gonna get out. It's fun. It's just silly, fun. I've never played it without the whole group just bursting out in laughter. It's great.
Yeah, I did see in the chat they were saying that 6-player deck builders are not usually the best idea, but I think this, because of the half-hour playtime, I doubt that it has the kind of downtime like 6-player Dominion would have.
Yeah, it's definitely, the deck building is not the primary, the primary thing is you need to run and you need to get out. And the deck building is tied so perfectly in with that push your luck mechanic. Like one of the treasures that I need to stop picking up is the chalice, which will let you move 2 spaces when you pick it up and add it to your deck. But in the future, it's nothing. It's 0. You don't move when you pull it. So, and it's that sort of thing of the cards. It's a balance and a push your luck of, do I want an immediate, I need to move, or do you want, this is going to move me back quite a bit, but it's going to benefit me in the long run. If I survive to the long run, it's really well done. And the deck building is not necessarily the primary thing. Yeah, it's really neat. It's really unique. I've never seen anything like it, especially with the whole your neighbor handles your deck for you kind of thing. That when we were learning it, I was just like, wait, what? What is this?
So Zen mentions in the chat that a lot of games that come out in Japan are indie games, or what they consider indie games, and the print size, the print run size is like 1 to 500 copies. So that might be another obstacle to putting it into something like the BGG store, which I agree with. But every once in a while, a company has taken a chance on a title like that, and they'll make slightly more than 500. When you're talking about games printed here or in Europe, usually anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000 is the print run. So if that helps you know the what indie means to that, that's very, very few copies.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know another friend in the area was able to order a copy from Amazon Japan. So I know there are at least a few copies rotating around, and the friend who introduced it to me actually gifted a copy to me. I have no idea where she got it as a going away gift. So I have a copy. Come find me at Origins 2017. I'll definitely have it.
Well, and it looks like Zen said T Club is the publisher, and they are planning on making more games, but they might be focusing on a different game of theirs called Princess Escort, which I would imagine is also kind of one of those small dungeon type crawler games with like a twist, which they seem to be kind of popular right now. As you were talking about that game, I was thinking about all the games that reminded me of, and it was a pretty long list.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh, sorry, Ori. So did you have any games coming out that you're looking forward to? I know that, there's some huge titles, so I'm sure you've got stuff. But.
Yeah, the one game that I've really been keeping my eye on and has gotten really mixed reactions from Origins, so I'm kind of hesitantly continuing to keep my eye on it, is Tyrants of the Underdark.
Okay, so the D&D board game.
Yeah, and it's from the same designers as Lords of Waterdeep, which is a great game. I have it on my shelf with the expansion. We love bringing it out. So I thought, ooh, okay, let's see what this is. And contrary to the previous discussion of deck building, deck builders usually have an extremely short shelf life in our house. It's just nothing has ever stuck. We played Dominion. That was one of our original gateway games. We got it. We loved it. We played it all the time. And we just kind of burned out on it. And then we just stopped playing it. And we just never kind of wanted to play it again. We'll play it from time to time, but it didn't have the legs to last. And
I think that's almost universally true with deck builders. I know that people will take exception with things like Legendary, I think a lot of people would say, but they pump expansions out for that. Like, it's going out of style because people always want those new cards and stuff to expand upon.
Yeah, and we played Ascension for a really long time. We were really big into Ascension, and it also just kind of fizzled out after so long, even with buying the new expansions. And I've started finding that if there's a game that has deck building, it has to have something other than just deck building. If it's just straight deck building, I'm kind of ugh. So
I love deck building integrated into a game. It's fabulous. Deck building is a main mechanic, with the exception of maybe Eminent Domain. I don't have anything I really have kept over time.
Yeah, same here. So that's kind of where my interest for Tyrants of the Underdark comes from, is both looking for something that uses deck building in a fun way while not being the only thing, and being from the designers of Lords of Waterdeep. So for anyone that might not know kind of the gist of it, you have a deck. And you're building a deck very similar to an Ascension style, where you have this kind of big column of cards and you're pulling stuff out into a variable market. But paired with the deck building is a board with area control elements, and you're trying to get your troops into different areas, and you're trying to score majorities. There are spies that you can play that, as far as I'm understanding from what I've heard from Origins, it kind of forces players to get out of their corner, and it kind of forces everyone to be out on the board instead of just turtling back in one little spot. And a lot of the point generation comes from both those area majorities and also from promoting cards in your deck. And when you promote a card, you essentially trash it out of your deck, but that's how you get points for it. So it's this kind of balance of, I really like this card's ability, but if I trash it out of my deck, then I'm getting a lot of points, but then I lose the ability. And it just sounds really cool. And a lot of what I've heard from Origins so far is that the game mechanically is a blast, and it's so much fun. And then the card quality and the artwork is kind of meh at best.
So let me talk on that for just 1 second. Sure. So just so everybody at home knows, they had been announcing this game like 8 months ago, 9 months ago at this point, and it was supposed to come out like maybe, I think, January or February originally. And then the rights to all the D&D board games shifted over to Gale Force 9 for this game, and then going forward to games that they've made up. So they took this already designed game that already had some art, and it switched manufacturing. So it's only now coming out late this year, even though it had been announced far, far long ago. It's kind of late to market at this point.
Yeah, and so now with kind of all those delays, and I guess it was supposed to come out this month maybe, and a lot of people were like already kind of like, oh no, it's been delayed again. And so I know there's been some frustration about that in the community. And now that people are starting to see it at Origins, it's like, really? Like this, and I wonder if maybe some of the cards and whatnot are still prototype-ish. I don't know. I wasn't there. But it does have an MSRP of $75, which seems
ugh. Well, and the biggest thing for me is that if you're a retailer and you had a pre-order in when they asked for pre-orders, you have to re-pre-order it. And I didn't figure that out till it came on the BGG stream the other day. They brought out the box and it was Gale Force 9, and I was like, oh, criminy. So I had to actually go back and pre-order it for the shop. And so a lot of shops, I think, will have it late because they won't know to do that.
Yeah, so I'm very tentative about this. I feel like I'm always mechanics first with a game, and kind of components and artwork and all that secondary. And if the mechanics are really good, it's like, oh, it's okay. One of my favorite games that we have on the shelf is Fjords, and it's not pretty. And
yeah, I Global Mogul. We all have one.
Oh, yeah. So, and whenever I've purchased the game for the theme first, I have been burned every time without fail. So at this point, it's just kind of like, okay, if the mechanics are good, I'm willing to give it a shot. But with this one, I was really hoping it would have been kind of better news out of Origins, and I'm still willing to give it a shot. I'm still really keeping a close eye on it, but Oh man, I
I
don't
think
know about
there's I think there's a range when okay, so I don't need the finest components. I play a lot of Slaughter games. I don't mind like Alban Viard's games are like the cardboard's not super thick and they're all kind of like susceptible to bending and tearing and all that stuff. But I think it depends on how good the mechanics are. I think there has to be a balance of either amazing mechanics and then I don't care about your components, or if everything's just so or good, everything better be like top-notch quality for me. So to hear that a deck building game might not have good card quality makes me sad. I don't sleeve games that much, so it's frustrating to think that that main focus of that game is not going to be nice and fun to play with.
Yeah, it's definitely disappointing. Like one of the other games that I picked up recently that also has some component issues, but the gameplay is so good I don't care is Deluvia Project. And yeah, it has that typo on the board and I'll never unsee it.
It's
And
more
yeah,
funny than anything else because the game is amazing. So you're just like,
yeah,
the scoreboard doesn't make sense. So
yeah.
sure.
I still need to put in an order to replace the cubes so that the cubes are kind of better colors, and especially because I normally play as a red color, and when you're supposed to have purple resources that are actually also red cubes, it's it's very frustrating to try and play.
So I know my friend Sue's just ordered myself and some other locals the sets of cubes to replace ours as well. We highly recommend, if you haven't played this a lot, doubling the player cubes, like getting 10 more or so per player, because it's pretty cheap overall to do so, and you always run out. You will always run out of cubes in that, and they're not limited, which is frustrating.
Right, yeah, and that is actually not the only game I need to order cubes for. The other one is Stronghold Second Edition. Oh my goodness, I have never seen cubes this small in my life. Like, I mean, I knew from reviews, like, I know people had said, oh, these cubes are so small, you'll never believe it. And I thought, oh, it can't be that bad. Like, it's sometimes hard to see scale on, you know, even when you see like someone's finger or you see like a meeple next to it, sometimes it's just hard to tell. And I got this game and I pulled those cubes out and I thought maybe they're no bigger than 2 millimeters, maybe
So
1 millimeter cubes.
I think they had that size in the original because I remember those being super tiny and where I felt like fat fingered and I couldn't really move everything around effectively. I'm not sure if we will ever get Stronghold Second Edition to the table. I have it. I've had it for months now, and two-player games are so hard for me to get to a table, and especially one that's that chunky and lovely. But we both have to learn it, and it will take us literally a whole afternoon. We have to find it somewhere.
That's something that that I, especially lately, has been really hitting the spot here. And granted, I'm lucky that I have that gamer spouse that'll take a rainy Sunday afternoon and say, yeah, let's play Star Wars Rebellion. And Stronghold is kind of in that same camp of two-player epic afternoon games. But man, those cubes, and there's no reason for them to be that small. Even the spaces on the board are where you put the cubes are bigger than the cubes. Like you could easily have normal Euro-sized cubes and it would be no problem. Like even the bag that the cubes go in is not even halfway full. It's like these could totally be bigger. What is like all the pieces for the defender that are these really great little sculpted meeples of like little archers and little soldiers with like little sticks and swords. And little hourglass. I mean, they're a little smaller than normal meeples, but they're beautiful and they're like normal sized. And then you get these cubes. You're like, what is this?
They
But
just want to make you feel bad for being that on that side. Just
yeah. But I mean, it's totally worth it. I was a little hesitant about this game, and then I started seeing reviews for the second edition coming out, and I ended up trading it on BGG and getting rid of Mage Knight, which still sort of makes me sad, but Paul just never quite warmed up to Mage Knight, and while I loved playing it solo, it was the sort of thing of if I'm going to devote 3 hours to a game on a rainy Sunday afternoon, I'd rather play something with Paul than just play something by myself.
are you going to try Star Trek Frontiers then?
I'm actually, I'm gonna lose so much street cred for this. I'm not a huge fan of Star Trek.
Oh, I mean, that's okay. I just didn't know if that would help Paul, because that's Mage Knight, but Picard, so maybe that
Right.
would get into it.
Yeah, I don't know what it. I think it was just all the info on the on the enemy. There's just something that never quite clicked with him with the mechanics with Mage Knight, and I loved it, but I didn't have anyone else to play it with. And it's a great solo game, but it was just so hard for me to get it to the table as a solo game whenever I would have that much time. Usually when I have that amount of time to play, so does Paul, and I always felt bad like pulling it out just to be like, well, I want to play Mage Knight, so you can go watch TV and I'm going to play Mage Knight. Like, I'd rather play with him. So we have enough big two-player epic games. The War of the Ring is on the wish list, so that'll kind of complete the trifecta of big epic games. But lately,
See, I'm jealous, but I'm not, because I would never have time to play War of the Ring. I could never pick that up because it would just never hit my table. But it looks so cool.
Yeah, actually, just this past week, I got in 2 plays in one day of Star Wars Rebellion. Mostly because the first game ended so fast. It was awful. That Rebel base stood no chance. So I was teaching a friend. We both had the day off, so it's like, well, let's play some Star Wars Rebellion. It was great. I'm loving that game so much.
And Rebellion is one of those kind of cat and mouse type games that is really fun at 2 players. I always like those games at the 2-player levels.
Oh yeah, and I'm such a big Star Wars fan that it was an instant buy for us. We're both really big into Star Wars. I mean, we have Armada, but neither of us are really big on kind of the one versus all dungeon crawl. So we both kind of stayed away from Imperial Assault. So when Rebellion was announced, it was like, oh, finally, this is the Star Wars game for us. And we picked it up and we loved it right away.
I think I don't necessarily have the type of fandom for Star Wars that most people do. I feel like most people have like this childhood nostalgia quality to it. I just don't. I watched like Star Trek movies and I watched like Planet of the Apes type movies when I was younger. I didn't watch Star Wars until I was in my teens.
Yeah, I grew up with Star Wars, and I have an older brother who's 13 years older than me. So I always got all of his hand-me-down toys and whatnot. And he grew up when Star Wars like first hit theaters. So he had all these like original figures and stuff. So I was like very much a tomboy growing up because I always got my brother's toys. So it was just like Legos and Connects and Star Wars and like all that sort of thing. So I grew up with it, and then I kind of got sick of it. And then episodes 1, 2, and 3 came out. It was like, oh, but in anticipation of the new movie, we just kind of rediscovered the Clone Wars animated show. And it's amazing. Granted, it's got some clunkers. It has definitely some clunker episodes. But on the whole, it's really well done. And that's kind of what's re-sparked my interest in Star Wars. And after watching that and playing Rebellion, it's like, oh, like I know characters from Ryloth, and I know all about the Hutt family and now Hutta, and like I can look at that map and I have all these memories from the Clone Wars of what happened there and where the characters came from and who these people are. And so it's...
Well, and you said you're reading the new novelizations for Star Wars, right? Like the new canon.
So, and that's like right now the novel that I'm reading, a lot of stuff is taking place on Ryloth. So it's just kind of it's just fueling the fire, really.
I will say the biggest fandom I have for Star Wars was Knights of the Old Republic, the game.
Okay.
That was the first time I'd ever gotten any background story beyond just episodes like 4, 5, 6, and that game is just so beautifully done. And it was sort of like Fable, but the Star Wars lightsaber building type stuff was like, that was enough to suck me in to get me to play a full video game. I don't think I've finished many games in my life, but that one I definitely finished.
Awesome. Yeah, I never really got into that one. I think it just kind of fell in a hole of gaming that I didn't have the right console at the right time, and I just kind of never got around to it.
I would highly recommend it if you like the Star Wars and you like that type of questing game. If you've ever played Fable, it was, to me, I guess this might be, I'm not a video gamer, so sometimes I see things that people get mad about, but for me, Fable and Knights of the Old Republic were trying to do the same thing, and Fable did it in like a fantasy setting where you sort of wanted to care about the main character, but I didn't. And Knights of the Old Republic let you kind of pick a race to care about, like I'm never going to be able to remember the names of all these types of people, but you would get like a little bit of background about your character, and depending on what you chose, it would flavor the interactions you had with the rest of the world, which is really neat. And you got to kind of pick light versus dark or try and stay neutral, and it had a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, I think that was a BioWare game, and I'm a huge fan of theirs. Like, Dragon Age is my #1 video game. So
I still have never played Dragon Age, the RPG or the video game. I should at some point try it, but I think the next thing to try is Overwatch.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Dragon Age is just, it's like New Dragon Age is like, yes, okay, I've read all the novels, I've played all the games. I haven't done the RPG. I haven't had a good experience with the RPGs yet. So, and I don't know a lot of people that play them, so I've never really gotten into them. My kind of initial experience with D&D was pretty negative, just not from a company standpoint, but just from a gaming standpoint. The storytelling wasn't really there, and the whole game just kind of felt like well, I want to do this. Oh, but you have to roll for that. Oh, you have to roll for that. Oh, you got to see if you can do that. And it's like, oh, it just felt like roadblocks at every corner. And it was such a turnoff. And I think it was just that one experience. And I don't really know anybody else in the area that really tried it.
I would say 100% that was definitely the group that you were in, or whomever was leading it, or something about that just didn't gel for you. Even me, who is super mechanically Eurogamer, like, heavy, every once in a while with friends specifically, an RPG can be a lot of fun. I don't do so much with the role play part myself, but being in a table with other people who are doing that and kind of conversing in character and doing things, the I want to do blah, roll for it, back and forth should be minor. And there's lots of systems that will kind of tamp that down, or GMs that can tamp that down and just make it more of an immersive experience. If you get a chance, I would say in your life, maybe try some more RPGs, but I'm not one to talk. I don't play often.
Yeah, it's something that I definitely want to try, but after that first experience, now I know, like, I definitely want to try it with like a really good group, or with somebody that's really going to like be a really experienced GM, or with people that I know and that I'm really comfortable with and that we'll all have a good time with. I think I need a little bit of a more pampered experience to try and get my feet wet with it.
I think what does it for me a lot of the time, I've had some really good friends run games for me, which is really kind of them, but if I needed an experience like that wasn't a traditional RPG, you could do something like Artemis. I don't know if you've heard of that. That feels like an RPG.
Yeah. I think, let's see. Yeah, I don't know. It's one of my friends in our group kind of has this metric idea for what kind of gamer you are, and that you either gravitate towards mechanics, towards storytelling, or there's another thing, like maybe it's theme, but I feel like theme is with storytelling. There's like a third thing. And storytelling has never been the thing that does it for me in a game. The only game that has ever really done it is Star Wars Rebellion. And I feel like that's just because I'm so invested in that IP. But just the whole idea, give me mechanics, give me that Euro, let me say.
I think it's a different hobby. I would not call like my enjoyment of RPGs anything near like a new Steffenfeld game. That just can't be bottled. But I think RPGs are a different way of experiencing things with your friends, and a different kind of conversation than you would normally have. Maybe I do feel like they're not the same for me. RPGs don't fuel the same part of my brain.
Yeah, so it's something I definitely want to try again, but probably not anytime soon. I'll kind of I've got the huge insurmountable have to find a new game group after moving task ahead of me. So
Yeah, I don't envy you that at all.
no, I'm so sad to leave my gaming group here, and I've gotten an amazing feedback from the BGG community for finding a new group and already meeting people online that are going to be in the area where I'm moving. So it's been amazing. I've got to say I've been so impressed with the whole board gaming community. It's such a great thing to be a part of, and everybody has been so nice and friendly, and uh, it's been amazing. I'm so happy that I'm part of this hobby.
I'm
So
psyched for you. Like, that's really cool. I think I'm kind of in a weird spot. My regular gaming schedule, which was about 3 to 4 nights a week, has since kind of broken up because of a couple different things, and so now I have to kind of reform my schedule to get my gaming back the way I like it, where I have at least a heavy game a week and not just filler or light stuff that you can get on the table really fast. I really miss having a lot of heavy games in my life.
yeah, sometimes it's hard for us to get those heavy games to the table, even with my regular weekly group. But like just this week, we played a huge, amazing game of Argent, the Consortium, which we had scheduled like 2 weeks ahead of time. Just kind of on the spur, there was one person who really wanted to learn it, and then as soon as he was like, yeah, so can we just schedule this? Like all of a sudden, like everyone flocked to the table. It's like, do you have room for me? Is there a seat for me? So, and it was a great time, and it was really fun just to kind of have this scheduled game of, we knew what we were playing. There was no hemming and hawing for 20 minutes trying to decide what to play. It was just show up and play some Argent. It was great.
I do recommend that for people. Like I run a Seattle based Facebook group just to like house if people wanted to put together, pickup games and stuff like that. And I see a lot of people talking about wanting to do something or like talking about wanting to put together a game night, but they don't actually just go and schedule it. Which that's the most success I've ever had putting games on a table with people is just by saying, hey, Thursday at 6 o'clock, I'm going to be free. I'd like to play this specific game at this place. I have room for 3 more. And that usually for me has been really successful. If you are the person that just makes those decisions, people aren't usually going to say no. They likely I will fill that table.
Yeah, our group meets every Thursday night, and it's sort of, we have a regular group of people and a regular time, but we never schedule the games ahead of time.
That's your
So
problem right there.
I know, and we don't always know who's coming, since it ranges pretty much from like 3 or 4 people all the way sometimes up to 10 or 12, and sometimes new people, since it's at a friendly local game store. Sometimes there'll be like people brand new to the hobby that just come, since the store advertises kind of that Thursday night game night. So we kind of show up, and then it's like, okay, wait, how many people do we have? Okay, and we need to split up into how many groups, and that means how many games, and then what are we going to play? And then half an hour later, we might be sitting down to a game. So, and that really kind of keeps some of the heavy games off the table sometimes, just because by the time we actually start, it's already 7:30, and it's like, ooh, I don't know if people are really up for a big, long, heavy game at this point on a weekday. And
That's
so,
literally my every Thursday, where every once in a while we'll be like, oh, I have blah, blah, blah new game, like West of Africa the other day. I was like, I really, really want to get that to a table. So we basically just put it out on the table until it filled up, and then we like put another game out on the table until it filled up, because our Thursdays go exactly from like maybe 4 of us or 3 of us all the way up to maybe 12 of us showing up in different parts of the evening. So the people that get there earlier know that they can probably get the heavier or medium weight game in, and the people that show up later are just going to play spades or whatever after hours at the bar.
nice. Yeah, and it's nice that I also have, there's a lot of different gaming groups in the area. So like on Thursday night, that's kind of our medium-ish Euro night. It's usually what hits the table. And then on Friday night, there was another group that is a little bit more into kind of the Ameritrash games. So that was the night. What did we play? We played 2 rounds of Everyone Does Not Get Out to kind of open things up while we waited for people to arrive. And then we played a big group game of Ladies and Gentlemen, which was fun. And then we settled in for a nice game of Cyclades. So that's kind of the game night that we can get stuff to the table that sometimes is a little too long or a little too on the thematic end for that Thursday night. And if I want to play that big Clash of Cultures or Merchants and Marauders kind of game, it's like, okay, that Friday night group is the way to go. So it's really nice that there's such a variety and so many gaming groups in the area here. Oregon is a great place to play games.
And lastly, before we sign off in here, I had to ask, because I don't actually know, and chat can answer as well. Do BGG ratings matter to you, like the actual rating on there? Because I was reading, someone on Twitter earlier was commenting that he had on his game a number of ratings and his average was still above 7 and he was super happy about it. But I found out that, like, every once in a while I'll give a rating or 2, but I don't actually prioritize it. And I don't know how much of it matters to folks that I know. Like, I don't hear a lot of people go, well, I bought it because it was an 8 on Board Game Geek. But does that actually have merit for you?
The only game that I've purchased because it was #1 on BGG was Puerto Rico way back in the day when I was getting into gaming, but I still did research and looked into it. I was like, well, this is the #1 game. Let's see what it's about. And I looked it up. I was like, ooh, this sounds really great, and picked it up. But for me now, the one and only one reason that I do a lot of the ratings on BGG is for the 100% amazing, fabulous, look forward to every year BGG Secret Santa. And so when I'm rating a game, it's more of to give whoever might be my Secret Santa an idea of what I like, why I like it, leave some comments, like the reason why I keep a wish list, then kind of cycle through stuff on the wish list. It's all in anticipation of the once a year BGG Secret Santa. Otherwise, I don't really look at ratings. I look at the rankings every once in a while, or when something's happening or something shoots up. But I'd rather watch videos and read reviews and listen to podcasts. That's kind of how I get those reviews. And the number on BGG is kind of like, eh.
See, I think that's where a lot of us land that are way too far into this hobby, is that ratings are nice to maybe give you an idea. If I open something up and it's a 4, I can probably make some assumptions about it. But in general, most of us are at least going to know what the game is like, if not read a rule book or watch a review or something, because our time is more precious now that we have all these amazing games we want to play. It's harder to use your time on games that you probably won't like.
Yeah, I have a very hard and strict rule on our board game collection, and that is that if I'm going to add a game to the shelf, I have to make sure that it's something I want to play at least once every calendar year. And if I have too many games to play each one once, I have too many. And if there's a game that I don't want to play at least once, it needs to go. So
my rule of thumb for 90% of the games on my shelves are, if someone was over at my home and they pulled a game off the shelf and said, can we play this? And if I would say no to that, there's probably a reason I shouldn't own it. That's usually my metric. There are exceptions, because there are some games I just don't want to play with a lot of different types of people. I just want to play it with like super close friends, or like especially party games for me. Like I don't really want to play most party games anytime, but I like having them in my collection to carry around with me for cons and things like that.
We finally bought our first party game.
Oh, what is it?
Codenames.
We keep like Anomia, Shadowhunters, Codenames. I don't know, a bunch of like goofy stuff. Werfel Bonanza is new for me, but it's in the party game realm for me.
Yeah, I think probably the next party game that I'm, at least the one that's on the wish list right now, is Ink and Gold. It's just something that I feel like you can play with a big group. It's fun.
Yeah, but what I will say is that now that you have Everybody Does Not Come Out, you're
True.
gonna feel that those are very similar if you've never played Ink and Gold.
Yeah.
That vibe was like streaming off of what you were saying.
Yeah, although I think Ink and Gold is easier to learn. If you've never played a deck building game, I think Everyone Does Not Come Out is a little harder because it's deck building, but you don't have your deck. And I think if you don't know what deck building is, that might be a little bit of a barrier to entry.
I would agree with that. That is not a party game that you put in front of a brand new player. It's a little too much.
And other than Codenames, we really don't have any party games that we could just like get out with anybody. That's pretty much it. So yeah, party games are really, really hard, especially since we are so focused on stuff that plays well with two. If something doesn't play well with two, it's got to be like amazing to put on that shelf.
That's interesting. I like to have them on hand. I guess I attend a lot of social events and I always have a few in my bag because at a social event, I would much rather be playing a party game than not playing a game. Right. So I think I literally put those in just so I can tag along the city with me to have games with me.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's starting to change a little bit now that I'm going to be having a new job and moving to a new place. Is I'm really starting to think about, geez, I don't have any party games. What's going to happen when we have people over? We can't just play Codenames every time. And starting to think, it's what if we can't find like a really great group? Well, we better get some really big epic 2-player games. So when we really need a big game fix, we've got something. And there's just, for a 3+ game to hit the shelf and stay there, it's got to be amazing. And kind of looking over, I think Shadows over Camelot is one. I love that game. And you'd never play it with two. And I feel like it's gateway enough that it's easy enough to hit the table. Other than that, I think everything on the shelf is playable with two.
Yeah, I'm exactly the opposite. There are a couple things that play okay at two, but there's very few 2-player only. Very few.
Now that we've gotten so many 2-player games lately, it's almost kind of scary. I'm looking at the shelf when we have people over. I'm like, ooh, I'd love to play Targi. Oh, we have 4 people.
Oh man, did you see the cover for the next Targi?
I did. Oh, I want to know so much more.
I was so freaking excited for that. And I was so glad that Targi is back in print, everybody. Targi is back.
Yeah, go get it.
And that, of all the games, I don't usually play a lot of games online. Targi is one of the best implemented like online versions of a board game that I've played. I really, really like playing that over the internet.
Yeah, I really don't play a lot of games online. I know a couple of friends in my group are like, okay, well, when you move away, we're just going to have to play online. And I'm like, oh, but I don't really play a lot online. And so I'll have to give Targi a try. But
yeah, it's not bad. It's not horrible.
Okay, so one of the things, though, about the new Targi expansion, that the cover is gorgeous, but I happened to get Targi in a trade, and I was super lucky to get the Japanese edition, which has that beautiful cover. It's amazing. Granted, we had to do paste ups and all that, but it was totally worth it. And that's one where I wouldn't normally have sleeved the cards, but with paste ups, we just went ahead and sleeved everything. And now I'm like, oh, but the expansion, the box won't match.
Oh, that shouldn't matter. I don't think that'll matter for you.
As long as it all fits in the same box. That's one thing that we try to do. I love expansions. I love expansions. Anytime that I can kind of switch things up or add a little something, and I think you brought this up on Twitter a couple of days ago, of the whole get an expansion to a game or get a brand new game, and that kind of difference. And this is an expansion household. Just expand those boxes.
I think that's cool. I don't do that. I think I prefer base games. very, very rarely like an expansion, because if I like the game, the expansion's probably going to bug me because it's going to fix or change something I really enjoyed. And if I didn't care for the game, I probably didn't try the expansion enough to see if it would fix what I didn't care for about it. It's like a double-edged sword for me.
Yeah, I think a lot of the expansions that I do really like and tend towards are games that just add more of the same. It's just like, here's a bunch of buildings that you haven't seen before, or here's all the same stuff, but here's this, new little thing, and it's just like, a new little thing for a game I love. Yes, please.
I would agree, like more like my favorite expansion series of a game that I don't actually own yet, Power Grid and its maps, right? So it's the base game is really fun. You could play it forever. And each map, because it has its own identity and flavor and maybe a couple of rules changes or different ways that the factories come out, it's just enough where it's just like the base but new. Like, I love that it always feels like Power Grid. It never feels super overblown. I guess there are some that are just really weird and different, but they're never so far out that they don't remind me of playing just the regular base game.
Yeah, I feel like that, again, with the map idea with Concordia, that it always feels like Concordia, but boy, you get that, some tight map with 3 players, and ooh, it's super fun, but you're still playing Concordia, really. It's just the map that's different.
Yeah, as soon as someone's telling me that they've added asymmetrical player powers and this new mechanic over here and half a board, like Villages expansions, I didn't care for either of them. I was just like, wow, like, they took like all this kind of nice, efficient game and they just blew up the board and they added this thing. And I was so disappointed by, I think it was Village Inn came first and then the port, but I couldn't play with those at all.
Yeah, I think a lot of the expansions that I tend towards are things like even the Agricola All Creatures Big and Small. It's just like, here's a bunch of buildings you can play with, and it just adds a little bit extra variety without really changing it. It's just more stuff. I love stuff.
Well, on that note, I love stuff too, but I should probably say goodbye and thank you for coming on. If y'all had paid attention, this is Megan. She is, maybe if we can elbow her enough, going to be starting her own video series maybe when she has moved and gone into the middle of the country.
Yeah, that's definitely on the docket. Keep an eye out for the Meeple Maestro. Basically pairing board games with music. I am a music theorist, and I love classical music, and I think it's a really cool way to bring classical music into board gaming is through background music. So, and maybe to introduce people to music you haven't heard before because it's in that classical realm. So the idea is for each game I'll do a pairing, one with a historically and location accurate piece, and one that is a really good thematic pairing.
I love it. I love it so much, especially because I don't prioritize enough classical music into my life. I tend to just have it in my giant shuffled mix of music. So like every once in a while, Bach comes on, sure. But it's never something I seek out enough as I should have. And for those of you who don't know, and I don't know why you're here if you don't, I am Marguerite Cottrell, Maggibot. You can find me online, Maggibot, on Twitter, Facebook, BGG, and at meeplesincluded.com, which is my new collaborative website with game reviews, strategy ideas, lots and lots and lots of things. Please follow us there as well. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for watching. And thank you to Megan for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.